Hey everybody, welcome back to Chortle Games. I'm Jake.
I'm Steven.
And welcome back to another Forward Compatible. This is a series we do on the channel where we take a game that Steven played, or maybe me one time, maybe. A game that we played
I would love to see you
5
do
years
one
ago,
of these.
at least, and basically play it again and take a look at, does this game hold up? Does this game, is it forward compatible with today's gaming styles? Is it forward compatible with who we are today? That is what this series is. That's what this series is about. You're watching the preview. This is where we're going to talk about the game and what we kind of remember about it. And this month, for spooky October time, the game that we're going to cover is Alan Wake. So, Steven, this is one of your all-time favorite games. So,
All-time
let's just dive into it. What sort of stuff did you like about Alan Wake? Tell me about it.
So, just to give some brief introduction, Alan Wake, I don't even remember what year it came out.
I can do a fact check.
I believe it was
for you.
2010. Yeah, fact check me real quick. I believe it was around 2010. Alan Wake came out. The people who Remedy are the people that made it. They did the original Max Payne games, and more recently they did Quantum Break and Control.
It was 2010.
And Remedy has,
so almost
I was
9
right.
years ago.
Came out on the Xbox 360 and the PC later on, and I played it on 360 back when I was, a heathen. So when I started creating the concept for Forward Compatible, I knew that Alan Wake was a game I had to do, and I knew I had to do it in October because I've talked a lot about horror games in the past and how I'm not a fan of horror games.
Right.
But there have been two asterisks to that statement, and those two are the Metro series, which I can't do on Forward Compatible now, Jake, because I just played them last year.
Yeah.
But it's the Metro series and Alan Wake, which I can't really call either of them horror games.
Suspenseful.
But they are
thriller, kind of.
They are thrillers, spooky games, but they have that sense of like it feels like a horror movie almost. And Alan Wake does a really good job of making the horror interesting and not all encompassing. I need to run from everything or I'm going to die. Like it lets you fight back. Right. And so Alan Wake not only was one of the games that inspired me to to present the idea of Forward Compatible, but also it's the game that made me come up with the 5-year rule. Like that, if you've wondered why at least 5 years, because the last time I played Alan Wake was 5 years ago. So I think it was 5 years. So that's the reason we have that. And so it's that important of a game to me where like when I think of nostalgic games, I think of either games that I spent so much time playing and just got so much out of the gameplay like JK2 and the lightsaber combat. And then I think of games that stayed with me, like that left an impact and impression that I think about, and Alan Wake is one of those games.
You reference Alan Wake. If you're new to the channel for the first time, Steven references Alan Wake a lot, and especially recently since we've been talking about Control. But Alan Wake is kind of in a lot of ways a blueprint that you look to of like how they did certain storytelling elements and that sort of thing.
Yes. Like Remedy. And I'm not going to say, and again, I feel like I have to say this every single time I'm looking right in the camera. I have not played this game in 5 years. A lot happens to a man in 5 years, and he forgets things. So if in any of this I'm incorrect, let me know.
This is the preview.
Go ahead.
This is the preview. Where we
Yes.
listen to what Steven remembers about this game, or me if I ever do.
Yes.
But this is what we remember and really put on the table what we remember this game being like, so that at the end of the week, next Monday, when we have the review, we can really compare and contrast what it really was like to go back through it. This is our, when you're doing an experiment, this is our variable, right? So.
Yes. This is the control. That's the control. That's what you were thinking. Yes.
For.
The variable is what goes in to change the outcome from the control.
I'm not a scientist.
But we're not talking about Control. We're talking about the game that came before it, Alan Wake. So, if anything I say in here is wrong, at me in 7 days when I've done the review.
There you go.
But I don't consider the story of Alan Wake perfect, but I consider its execution in what I remember being what, like you said, kind of a good blueprint for how to do intrigue with definition.
Right.
Because the way I remember is that Alan kind of starts off an unlikable character in the sense of like you understand that he's struggling because his whole thing is he's a famous author.
Right.
This game feels very Stephen King,
Right.
but not like Sleepwalkers Stephen King, like good Stephen King.
Gotcha.
To where it's a down on his luck writer is looking to get his inspiration back. So he and his wife, Alice, go to this town in the mountains so that he can find his inspiration. And that right there is all you need to know going into the character of Alan. He's down on his luck. He's hard on himself. And he's kind of a jerk a little bit. I remember him being kind of like, "Oh, don't say that to your wife. She's just trying to help."
Yeah.
Like I remember feeling that a couple times. But that's what one of the things that makes the execution so interesting is because I've talked about like the narrative voices that Remedy loves to use. In Alan Wake, the voice is almost as if Alan is writing everything that's happening.
Right. Isn't he like? Doesn't it, you're finding notebook pages and you're hearing his
Yes.
voice and it's what he's written, but it's something that you're either about to encounter or just encountered, and it's
So-
very weird. Like, where is this happening?
So
in the
he,
timeline?
and I'll try to remember this as best I can. Where the game picks up, like where the real gameplay starts, is Alan has blacked out for like 7 days, and he can't remember anything in that window, and his wife is gone, and strange things are happening in the town, and in that window of time, he wrote a manuscript, a codex, whatever, of the events of the following 7 days. So you're finding these pieces of paper of things that are about to happen or have happened that Alan doesn't have necessarily context for. Like the first one you find details a dark figure with an axe, glistening blood. And you read that, and it's one of those items you can pick up. You read that, and you're just like, interesting. And then sure enough, a few minutes later, you run into that guy, and he's coming after you. These codex pages explain what happens to certain characters off screen. Like it's a weird. It's basically like Alan was taken and put into his own creation. Is kind of how it feels. It's a really interesting concept that kind of takes the writer and puts the writer within his creation. It's really interesting. The character of Alan, I remember really liking. He talks like a writer. He monologues like he sounds like a writer, basically, like in a way to where it's sometimes a little pretentious, but ultimately it comes off in such a way to where it's just interesting perspective, I guess. And so the gameplay, I'll just go to the gameplay because I'm kind of getting sidetracked in my head. I'm trying to think of, like, one of the things about these previews, I don't think about what I'm going to say beforehand because I like try to have those moments where I just suddenly remember something and it's like, oh, you remember that, Jake? But yeah, no. But the gameplay, which this is the big difference for me in horror games. I don't want, like, I'm not saying like in horror games I need to feel like I can kill anything, you know? But in a horror game, for me to enjoy it, I need to be able to fight back. Because to me, it's more interesting, rather than in a game like Outlast. Not Outlast. Amnesia. Outlast is also like this, so I guess Outlast works. Where you are running from a creature that you can't fight, you can't beat, you just need to run.
Literally, the whole mechanic is just hide. Get away.
Yes. What's more interesting to me is knowing that you have to face your fear, and knowing that you could give your all to fight it and still lose.
Right.
Like having that chance of success, but also that probability of defeat. That's interesting to me. That's kind of how Metro is with sometimes. I'm getting off track. In Alan Wake, it is a third-person shooter. But whenever you're fighting something, these things have been consumed by like a darkness, like this entity, and you have to burn the darkness off of them with a light, a source of light, and then you can shoot them. And I remember this being really different. Like it felt like different shooting mechanics, but not in a bad way, just in a weird way. Like it felt refreshing back when I played it. It was very unique. And I remember like I've never looked at flares or flare guns the same ever since playing this game, because like one thing that I remember is that, you know, a flare gun in certain games like Ghost Recon is a good example. The flare gun is useless.
Right.
In Alan Wake, the flare gun is a grenade launcher. Like, it's straight up. Like, I remember, like, whenever you fire the flare gun, and whenever I fired it for the first time, I was just like, oh, what's this gonna do? And it nukes everything. It's great. So, like, it was an interesting take on, like, literally light versus darkness, using light as a weapon. And so, I remember that a lot. Something I don't remember very specifically is the different beats of the story, because the game itself, what stuck with me were the characters, the concepts, and the execution. So I honestly don't remember much about the story or how it ends, and that's interesting to me. Is that like I don't remember how it ends, but I remember that they came out with American Nightmare, and it still felt like it didn't end.
Right.
So I guess if you want to go ahead and talk about, like, do you want me to go ahead and talk about what I'm expecting, or did you have any questions?
No, so far that's all I remember. I've only played. I think I played this once, and just for a little bit. I didn't beat it. I didn't even remember there were guns, and I guess in the beginning of the game you don't start with a gun. You just have the flashlight, and you're learning to burn away the darkness or whatever. So that was exciting to hear from me. I'm curious what you're going to think of the story, since you don't really remember the specific beats, like you said. But yeah, that's my next question. That's what I really want to know. What are you expecting to see this week? Like, what are you expecting to come out of this? Not liking or liking more than you thought you would.
Let's go likes to dislikes. So I'm expecting to really enjoy playing this game again. I'm expecting to feel almost inspired just by the execution of like the narrative execution itself. Sorry. I think I'm going to really enjoy it. I'm going to feel like I'm playing it for the first time again. I remember certain scattered things, but I think that I played it at an age to where, like, I wasn't too into story-driven games yet. Because, like, that was during, the Gears of War 2 days, and Halo and everything, to where, like, I really enjoyed the gameplay back then, but, like, now to be able to absorb the story all over again with my own tastes being refined and, maturing and knowing what to look for, like, and having more analytical ability, I feel like I'm going to really appreciate that. And it's going to feel like I'm experiencing the story for the first time. But I do feel like I am going to walk away from the story feeling like it wasn't the most cohesive.
Right.
I feel like it's going to have better concepts and conceptual execution better than like actual narrative execution, if that makes sense. I feel like the story is going to be kind of convoluted at points. So we'll see there, I guess. Gameplay wise, I'm expecting it to probably feel a little dated.
Right. Unique takes like this typically feel rough later.
I feel like the shooting's gonna feel weird, but I'm not gonna have a hard time with it necessarily. But I'm curious to see how the graphics hold up.
Yeah.
Because what I did do, in order to not make my mistake that I made with JK2, I launched the game and launched it into, I just clicked new game just to let it run a little bit to make sure OBS could take it, and the graphics are good. Like they're pretty good for a 2010 game, but the PC version came out a few years later. So what I am really excited for is to actually get into the game and get beyond like standing in an empty room like I experienced when I tested it, and actually get into like just the beautiful town that this game takes place in. Because like back then, and my brother Andrew from Friendly Fire Games, he experienced this game a little bit before I did because he let me borrow it to play it after he beat it. I would watch him play sometimes back then, and we were just like, man, these graphics are nuts. Like back then, the graphics looked really good. Like just the visuals, the town, like the sunset, like it all looked really pretty. So I'm really excited to see what my super sweaty ultra computer can do.
Here's hoping it just doesn't crash. That's what I'm hoping for.
I think I fixed it. it. So, fingers crossed. But yeah, I'm. This is one of those games that like I don't have as many memories as I did with JK2, because I didn't play it as long as JK2 did. I did with JK2, but I have thought about it a lot ever since I played it, because I think I've only played through it twice, once in 2010 and then once in 2014. So I'm really eager to get back in and experience it again with you guys for the first time.
It's going to be great. I'm excited with it just being a spooky kind of game. We're going to be able to it's really kind of the only spooky thing that I know that we're going to get to do this year for Halloween for the channel. So this will be exciting.
And I expect you to be in a lot of these streams, because with how much you loved Control, you've got to come watch it so you can see.
I'm gonna try to tune in more than I got to for JK2. Awesome. But anyway, it's gonna be a lot of fun. Well, this is just really kind of the beginning of the whole series and the show. So we've discussed everything. Steven is gonna be live streaming the game all week long, starting tonight, Monday. You said 9:30 Central Time.
About 9:30 CST, yeah.
So you can tune in for part 1 tonight, see the beginning of how the game starts. I remember the beginning being really cool, so I think you're definitely going to want to tune in for that. Then Steven will also be streaming Tuesday night, probably Wednesday night, probably Thursday night, with the goal of finishing on Friday.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to go straight shot Monday through Friday with the streams, and we'll see how that works. I'm hoping it's not super long. I probably won't get as lost as I did in JK2, because I feel like the game
is a lot more linear than
it's a lot more clearly linear.
I guess that's true.
Than JK2.
It's technically linear. But anyway, so streams all week. Let's tune in, hang out. We want to hear your input. We want to hear what you're thinking as you're watching. Like, oh, these graphics do look great, or oh, this doesn't look like it's fun to play. Whatever your thoughts are, we want to hear from you in the live streams, because we'll incorporate that in the review at the end. Yeah. And it helps Steven.
Yeah, and if any of this,
his thoughts and what he's thinking about.
It really does. And if any of this, like, you guys might have memories of other games that I don't. Like, you guys might see Alan Wake and think, wow, this is really Silent Hill, or really Resident Evil, or something like that. Tell me those things, because I never played those games. That's part of my past that I don't have, and I would love to hear you guys share about your nostalgia while I'm experiencing mine. I think that would be really cool.
Absolutely.
Just anything you guys have that you think about while watching these. This is a collaborative effort. I just happen to be the one talking. I'd love to hear your input.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for this preview. Stay tuned later tonight for the first part of the stream, and then come back next Monday for the review and see if any of Steven's thoughts and nostalgia held up and was forward compatible. We'll see you next time. Bye.